Okay. All right. Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining. I'm John McNamara. I'm here today with Leif Davidson. Hello, buddy. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you.
Awesome, fella. So we're here to continue our discussion on what is messaging. This is part 3. We've got some. This is the best bit. I think you'll like this one. It's a live broadcast on Google Hangout. So please do tweet in any questions that you've got to hashtag IBM Messaging, and we'll do our very best to answer them at the end of the Hangout. Okay, so before we jump into the meat of this particular topic, is it worthwhile, Leif, just having a quick recap about what is messaging, just to set the scene?
Okay, so well, if people haven't caught parts 1 and 2, then obviously they can go back.
Oh, yes, absolutely.
But messaging is really the movement of data in the form of messages between applications, typically business applications where you need to move data reliably, robustly, simply, but securely.
Yeah.
So it's moving data because you need to take business data from one application into another application, whether that's updating a bank account, booking a flight, doing a query, anything really. It works better with messaging because messaging provides you this layer separate from the applications where you can put all of the connectivity logic and error handling in there.
Right. Cool. So whenever I typically think of messaging, you always kind of think of the point-to-point, don't you? From A to B, it's a kind of going back to the mail service. You write a letter, you write the address out, you know it's sending from, you know it's going to. But there's a more funkier style, isn't there? There's a more hip style of messaging, Leif.
There's new ways of messaging, and your email or your snail mail is a very good description of point to point. You're taking the data and you're sending it off to a particular place.
Yeah.
And that works very well from a point of view of, well, I'm application A, I'm sending it to application B. That's all very well. But frankly, the world is changing and things are becoming a lot more dynamic, and there are more and more things that are being connected together. We've all seen those graphs of it spiraling into the sky, saying, okay, 50 billion devices.
Yep.
There's new applications every day within probably every business. So there is a new style of messaging, and I'll say it's a new style. It's been around for a while, but it's coming more to prominence because people are understanding it more.
Yeah.
One of the things that's helping to give people that level of understanding is the way it's used in lots of different use cases today. And one use case is Twitter.
That's right. So yeah, so the style of messaging being published and subscribed being very different to the point-to-point style is where you don't really know, potentially, who's going to be picking up your message. Which sounds a bit crazy, doesn't it? You send a message and no one knows who's going to be picking it up. But you're right. If you take Twitter and you send a message, you send a tweet on Twitter, and you put in a hashtag of, say, trending or space hack or hackathon or whatever you want, someone clicks on that hackathon hashtag, what they're doing is effectively, in messaging terms and conceptual terms, they're kind of scribing on the information you're putting out there in relation to that tweet. So when you tweet stuff out, it may well be that somebody who doesn't even follow you is looking at the stream, goes, yeah, what's going on in the world of hackathons, puts in a hashtag of hackathons and comes across your tweet. You don't know who they are particularly, but they've still consumed your message, which is phenomenal.
Yeah, and it works very flexibly. You've got all of these potential streams of information, and you can just plug into that stream and say, okay, yeah, I'm interested in that, and then maybe you can dive further into that stream if you want. One thing, there was soccer game on recently, Barcelona playing against Bayern Munich. Bayern played very well, but Barcelona went through. But if you're on Twitter and you're looking at Barcelona, you may get lots of tweets about the football match. You might get tweets about what a wonderful city Barcelona is to visit.
Yeah.
But so obviously you might want to drill down further into that, and publish subscribe for messaging is much the same. The more refined you get with your subscriptions,
yeah,
the more precise the information that you'll receive. And if you think about getting away from the Twitter angle and more into what does that mean to a business, then if you think about doing a point-to-point messaging, I'm creating a message, I know who's going to receive it, so I send it to them, they send me a response, it's all good. But it's a very different programming style if you're programming around publish subscribe, and that works in all sorts of different ways. It can be good, it can be bad, it depends what you're particularly interested in. From a programming style, you can say, well, now all I need to do is say, this is my messaging and this is my publication topic.
Yeah.
And from a subscriber, you just go, I don't know who I'm getting this from, I'm just subscribing, interested in this, what we call topic. Now, that could give you an awful lot of information, maybe that's what you want. But it also, if you refine that topic, means that you can build a very simple, very dedicated application that's actually only listening out for particular styles of information, particular topics.
right, yeah,
and what really excites me about this is the way in which you're coding your applications can change, both from the publication applications and the subscription applications. You can suddenly go, well, actually, I'm going to code this to only be interested in a particular topic, and I don't need to worry about who it's coming from.
yeah,
And so, I mean, when we go back to those previous discussions of what is messaging, and we say, well, it's good for the programmer because they don't need to understand about the ins and outs of messaging and connectivity and things like that. They simply need to say, here's the message. This takes it a further step, and it's very good from an application program point of view because it's all around fast turnaround these days.
yes, absolutely right. Now, I hear what you're saying about the making you can have a very granular subscription to try and tune the information that you get. And you made the point about football. If I were to have a subscription to a topic of just football, I would get streams of data coming in of scores left, right, and centre from all over the world. But say, for example, I wasn't interested in all the scores, football everywhere. I could tune that right down to say Barcelona. Just give the source Barcelona, and so you can then build on those topic strings to tune it right down to the information that you require. Now, from the publishing end, the person doesn't need to know what you require. They simply produce that information, and it's then picked up via the use of the topics, which is just a phenomenal concept, really.
And it's interesting that it's not just obviously one publisher.
Yeah,
It could be multiple publishers, multiple subscribers, and that's huge change from where we had come from, which is point to point, where it's typically one publisher publishing to one subscriber.
yeah,
I mean, maybe it's one to a handful of subscribers, but it's not many to many. And publish subscribe it's you're throwing, any number of publishers are throwing messages, up into the air where they're seen by any number of subscribers, and there's this total decoupled nature between them both, which is tremendously liberating. But it's not a magic button. I mean, I think we can describe it in lots of exciting terms, and it's a great new style of programming. But you really have to pick the use cases that it's most relevant for. I mean, if I'm doing an update to my bank account, it's unlikely that publish subscribe is going to be
the way for you. No, you're
it's
right.
going to be here's the transfer of this money. It's or
because you want to know.
I want to know.
You want to know who gets
I'm
that.
only sending it to this other application,
Yeah,
and it's going to reply to me that say yes,
I've got that.
I've got that. Whereas you would typically use publish subscribe in a slightly more decoupled way. I mean, there are all sorts of real world examples. I mean, one real world example might be the growing use of the Internet of Things.
Right.
I mean, we talked about the sort of the graph spiraling off into the sky of the number of connected devices, and think about building an application for that. I mean, would you want to say, okay, oh, we've added another 20,000 devices, right? I better write some connection links to all of those devices.
Exactly, that'd be hard work. So I can sort of see where. So I got a brand new fridge recently, and it does more things. I think it did more things than my original computer used to do. To be honest with you. I think it also keeps things cold, right? But I could see why when you plug it in, you connect it into the internet. If you could see a part of that fridge freezer was operating out of its known tolerance, very simply create an MQTT message to publish something saying, yeah, fridge freezer, I see my part number X is probably a bit shaky, sends it off, and you might well have received an notification going, looking for those sort of messages coming in, going, actually, that could do the service, and then send an email to the owner saying, yeah, time to bring it in.
Send it to the display on the fridge.
Send it to the fridge. No beer for you unless you get me fixed. What a world that would be to live in. Well, that's fantastic. So, okay, so we've covered a recap of messaging. We have talked about point-to-point messaging. We've spoken about publish and subscribe messaging and the difference between the two, and where you would use one over the other. So, for example, send a response message where you want to know your minute's gone through and you've had acknowledgement from that would be a great point-to-point. But say, for example, the fridge freezer example might be thousands of fridge freezers publishing messages, and you want to know when specific failures occur.
Yeah, I mean, and in a business example, you can quite easily think of, well, maybe stock levels.
Yeah.
You publish out the fact that, a certain warehouse has maybe got stock levels of X, and different stores or different distribution centers might go, well, actually, we could take that. And it doesn't really matter to know to that warehouse to say, okay, who's getting this. But people will, you can use that in manufacturing and retail and holiday availability and flight availability. You want to publish information out. You don't necessarily know who's going to it, other than there will be an interest in that information. Now, you could say, okay, yeah, I'm publishing information about there being seats available on a flight. That's great, but I only want to have that seat on that flight if it's £200.
Right. Yeah.
That's there's a subtle distinction to say, okay, yeah, great, I'm interested in that flight. Oh, that will be a first class seat at £6,000. Thank you, John.
Yeah. I should expense that right away. No problem at all. Yeah.
But so what we've been talking about is publications on topics, which from a messaging point of view, again, if you go back to what is messaging is a header, and then there's the body of the message, which is the data you're sending.
Right.
We've been talking about topic, which is something you put in the field of the header.
Yep.
So if you think about messaging as a shipping container, you lock the shipping container and you put a bill of lading on the outside.
Yeah.
And the topic in this case would be on the outside to say, this container contains bananas or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And oh, look, I'm subscribing on bananas. Great. I want this. It's like, oh no, this is bananas as in some toy rather than banana fruit. Okay. Yeah. But anyway, so again, if I'm publishing flight information to Barcelona, and it's like, yep, flight information to Barcelona, I'll take one of those flights. You actually probably want to say, well, flight, what's the seat price? And unfortunately, that's in the message contents itself. And this is where, that's a step beyond messaging, so sort of outside the scope of what we're talking about. Messaging typically is concerned with the delivery of the message and not the contents of the message. And if you have maybe integration products which tend to introspect the contents of messages rather than just deliver them like messaging, then you can do content-based publish subscription. So where you go, I'm interested in this topic, but only when the contents include a particular value. So that's the next step, and it can make application programming even more refined I'm interested in stock trades on IBM,
Yep.
but only when the IBM stock price is above a certain level or something like that, or the
Right.
value of the stock trade is above a certain amount. And so PubSub is actually, as we've discussed, it's interesting in all sorts of different use cases, but it's not always the complete story. It's part of a solution that you can enrich further with additional things. In IBM parlance, we've got MQ for messaging, and we've got IBM Integration Bus for things like content-based routing. But it's only by doing PubSub and messaging point of view that you can actually then easily refine that at that next step. Because otherwise, it's like, well, I've got all of these messages.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, which you have to process. Buddy, that is awesome. Thank you so very much. So, shall we take a trip through Twitter and see if we've got any questions to answer?
Let's
do that. Let's do that. Okay. We'll do a quick search here on
do a quick subscription.
A quick subscription on IBM messaging. I like it. There we go.
Other hashtags are available, but not for this hangout.
There we go. Awesome. Okay, so we're going. Oh. Marvelous. Okay, so I think one from quite early on the podcast, we've got a question which is, can you give an application where I might use PubSub? So I think we gave one with the idea of having lots of different appliances all publishing information about their status.
Yeah, maybe if you've got sensors on freezers in maybe a retail store or something like that, and I want to make sure that I see whenever anything's going out of tolerance.
Yeah.
One of the original use cases was oil pipelines, in that sort of thing of, my pressure has dropped, that therefore means there's a leak. It doesn't want to necessarily send it to a particular thing. It just wants to say, my pressure is X, my pressure is X, my pressure is X. My pressure is now X minus 2.
Yeah.
Oops.
Understood. And the next one is, okay, where would I use PubSub over point-to-point? And I think actually we've kind of already answered, but the other way around, haven't we? Where we use point-to-point over PubSub. So you would tend to use the differentiator is with point-to-point. If you need to know that your message is going to a very particular receiver and getting acknowledgement back once that's done, point-to-point is your man. If you are publishing information on topics you're completely decoupled from the receiver, PubSub is the way to go.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's think about it differently from both the publisher and the subscriber.
Yeah.
I mean, where we think about, maybe a sensor publishing, they don't know who's subscribing. And if you're subscribing, you're going from one device to 20,000 devices. It's that complete decoupled nature on both sides. It's not one side being decoupled, but the other one coupled. It really does free you up.
Yeah,
it's quite exciting.
And that's scalable as well,
yeah.
Actually, especially with sensors being as prolific as they are.
But it also, if you think about, it's not just numbers of subscribers. It's allowing you to build applications far more dynamically, because you're saying, well, I know someone's publishing this stuff, so now I can very quickly write an application to subscribe to that to do something useful.
Yes.
And in today's fast-changing business world, that's what you need.
That is very true.
So publish, subscribe, I do think, is very much in tune with today's, speed is everything, time to market, time to value.
Yeah.
It's great.
Buddy, thank you so very much. And thank you very much for joining us. It's been an absolute joy. Cheers, fella. Take care.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.